If I had to rate myself by how much I love pumpkin spice, I think I'd have to give myself like an 11. Because I'm pretty basic. I mean, you can ask my wife. As soon as there's so much as a hint of autumn, I start getting really excited. It's almost like a Pavlovian response, because then it becomes socially acceptable to start overindulging in everything pumpkin related. Pumpkin pie, pumpkin bread, pumpkin cider, and yes, a slew of pumpkin spice and or infused caffeinated beverages. But as I mentioned at the beginning of the video, there's this stereotype about this sort of excessive and effusive enthusiasm about the world's most adored orange gourd, that it's quote-unquote basic. For those who don't know, basic is largely millennial and Gen Z slang for people whose core personality trait is being obsessed with superficial, often unnecessarily expensive, trends because they're popular and or endorsed by celebrities. The pool of things making them unique and interesting is about as shallow as they are. Although anyone can be basic, it's a term that's largely used when the subject of the conversation is white, most frequently deployed when specifically talking about young white women. That is to say that the stereotype surrounding pumpkin spice is that it's a thing that is predominantly enjoyed by white people. That is not to say that it can't or shouldn't be enjoyed by others. I am a pumpkin spice evangelical, and I believe that all people should come to love and embrace its seasonal pumpkiny goodness. But it's a claim that says that people who enjoy it tend to be disproportionately white. This sounds like an empirical question. Is pumpkin spice largely a white person thing? And it's one of those questions that the tools of social science can investigate. So today, that's exactly what we're going to do. Not to spoil it or anything, but when you're looking at the data, the answer appears to be, well, yeah. Looking at our research question, it appears that we have two variables of interest: the popularity of pumpkin spice and whiteness. How can we measure or observe these concepts in order to test our hypothesis? Well, one way that we can measure popularity is to use Google Trends. Google Trends allows users to input search terms and track their popularity over a period of time. Google normalizes the actual search volume such that 100 is the score that is given when the concept was at its most popular over the time period and under investigation, and relates the rest of the data to that point. So if I was to just look at pumpkin spice's popularity during March of 2018, you'll see that 100 is March 4th. But if I were to do it over the last 12 months, and August 26th becomes 100, while the 4th becomes like 3, because the 26th is what is at its most popular over the last 12 months, and the 3 is how it looks in relation to that date. I'm going to put some resources down in the doobly-doo that'll provide more details for how the trends data works. But another thing you can do is to compare popularity by geography. That is to see where the search term was most popular over the period of interest, with the most popular place being normalized as 100 and the other places being ranked in relation to that. One of the available geographies, as it happens, is US states. So we have some means of measuring how popular pumpkin spice is by state. And since our other variable of interest is whiteness, we can use data from the US Census to look at the proportion of each state that is non-Hispanic white. If our hypothesis is correct, then we would expect places that have a higher proportion of white people will also have a higher interest in pumpkin spice. And that's exactly what we find. Here is a map of the United States based upon how popular pumpkin spice is. And here's a map of the United States based upon what percentage of the state's population is characterized as non-Hispanic white. If you put them next to each other, then you can see that while the relationship isn't perfect, there definitely appears to be an overlap in how white a place is and how popular pumpkin spice is. Or, in the case of California, apparently, how popular it isn't. But as this excellent video, Canubis Productions, points out, maps can be deceptive. So, just using the raw numbers, I used a statistical procedure to calculate how strong the association between these values are. This scatter plot can kind of give us a sense of that. It demonstrates the kind of relationship that we saw with the maps. Not a perfect one-to-one correspondence, but a very clear relationship in the aggregate. And after crunching the numbers, this translates to a high degree of association that is statistically significant to the 0.00001 level. In context, the de facto standard for most social science research is 0.05, with lower values seen as more significant than higher ones. Honestly, I was totally stunned when I saw the results. I did not expect a relationship that was this strong or statistically significant when I started searching for it. So it definitely seems like, yeah, pumpkin spice is very much a thing enjoyed by white people. It is very much a white people thing. But now that we've seemed to have gotten our answer, I'm going to tell you why it's wrong. Or at least why we shouldn't take it as gospel. At least I'll get to that right after I This stuff is great. I'm not going to go into detail about why Google Trends data is not a perfect way to investigate enthusiasm about a topic, nor am I going to talk about why census data isn't the best at encapsulating whiteness in the sense of all of its associated social constructs. But I do want to talk about our strategy of inducing the link between our two variables, trying to tie both variables to how well they're represented within a certain geographic level. Our original question focused on the level of an individual person. Is there a relationship between being white and liking pumpkin spice? But our data was at the level of a US state, and you can't actually infer individual proclivities from trends seen at higher levels. But it's such a common impulse for researchers to do that it actually has its own name. The ecological fallacy. The ecological fallacy says that it's impossible to take aggregated trends and directly infer the actions of smaller groups and individuals. For example, our data could be due to the fact that more whiteness means more interest in pumpkin spice, but it could also be that non-white people are more likely to look up the term when there are more white people around them. And there are other possible explanations too, all of which could lead to the same aggregated association between the proportion of a state that is white and the search ranking of pumpkin spice. You see the ecological fallacy, or at least you run up against the possibility of coming across it, in many social science applications. But one of the most clear is in the association between wealth and voting Republican. On the individual level, wealthy people tend to vote Republican. Yet, on the state level, wealthier states tend to lean Democratic. So if you were to guess how wealthy individuals voted based on state-level data, you'd get exactly the wrong answer. The only way to solve the problems of the ecological fallacy is to keep zeroing in on smaller and smaller clusters and people, getting as close to the level of the individual as possible. This is partially why there's a lot of research out there looking at data at the level of voting precincts, since there tend to only be a couple hundred people within them as opposed to tens of thousands at the county level and millions on the state level. But, alas, Google does not publicly release data lower than the level of the states that can be easily merged with census data. So we can't say anything other than states that have a higher percentage of non-Hispanic whites tend to have a higher aggregate amount of interest in pumpkin spice. To make claims that are more specific in that was to run afoul of the ecological fallacy. So does this mean that we should just toss out our conclusions from earlier? Well, it depends. Some researchers say yes. I personally think that they're still valuable. A lot of people think that science should be about pursuing investigations that demonstrate an unimpeachable link between two concepts. Anything less than that in their minds is simply not good science. This sort of thinking places a high value on individual pieces of scholarship and research. I and many others tend to see science on a more holistic level, with the evidence of a claim laying on a spectrum with how individually persuasive it is. Some research is very convincing that a link exists. Others is like ours, consistent with the consequences of a link, but doesn't shed light on the link itself. To analogize it, it's kind of like how a leaf on the ground is consistent with it being fall, but it just could as much mean that the tree is diseased. The leaf alone does not mean that autumn is upon us. But if you were to take what you saw with the leaves and match it with other observations, like the temperature of the air and the number of stores that are starting to sell pumpkin spice related stuff, you become a lot more certain that it is actually fall. Even if none of those facts can independently prove it, collectively, they could help you hone in on the truth of the matter. So for now, all we can say is that our evidence is suggestive that pumpkin spice is a quote-unquote white people thing, but that we'd need more research to figure it out with 100% certainty. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. I know it's a little different than what I normally do. It was actually inspired by an Instagram post that I made a couple of weeks ago. I'll occasionally post data visualizations of questions that I kind of wanted to look up or just things I wanted to investigate, and my wife told me that, hey, this topic, the pumpkin spice thing, is actually interesting enough to make a video about it too. And I thought about it and realized that she was right, so here we are. I'm looking forward to all of your guys' thoughts on the topic or suggestions for future videos or other things you want me to investigate. I am really looking forward to reading them all and answering them in the next office hours. So thanks to what I'm going to be calling the Knowing Better bump, the channel has gotten over 5,500 subscribers, which is absolutely just like crazy to me. I am absolutely jazzed to have so many people interested in investigating our social world. So to celebrate, we're going to be having 2 videos next week. One on Tuesday, which is going to be a regular comment response video to this video and last week's, and the other, which is going to come up on Thursday, which is going to be a Q&A. You can put your questions in the comment section below for that video, or you can hit me up on on Twitter by clicking the link in the description to the Q&A tweet I posted there. So yeah, send me some questions. Send me some questions about the channel, about me, about stuff you're curious about, I guess. I don't know. Hit me up with your questions. It should be a lot of fun, and I'm really looking forward to it. Sources for everything, including a picture that contains all the maps and scatter plots that I made, are down in the doobly-doo, as well as a link to the Facebook and Twitter and the blog. Look forward to seeing you guys out there as well. If you enjoyed this video, I hope you consider giving it a thumbs up. If you want to support the channel, you can do so by commenting down below, by sharing this video, and by subscribing to the channel to stay in the loop for more awesome social science content is uploaded. If you want to be guaranteed to be in the loop when I upload a new video, be sure to click the bell icon as well. As always, thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you next time.